No one had ever questioned the dominance of the Varnock. For over 10,000 galactic cycles, they reigned over 5-star clusters, obliterated 17 intelligent species, and enslaved hundreds more. Their bodies were forged in the crushing gravity of Norcal Prime, muscle-packed titans with claws sharper than steel and skin that absorbed plasma fire. No species dared defy them. Until Earth. The first contact was unremarkable. A mining vessel picked up strange emissions from a blue planet tucked in a backwater system, nestled behind an average yellow star. The scout ship sent back footage of skinny, soft-fleshed bipeds, mostly unarmored, unsophisticated, and utterly unimpressive. The Varnock laughed. Another planet to conquer. Another species to break. Commander Zirthal led the initial descent. He wasn't just any Varnock. He was their finest weapon, forged in wars and drenched in the blood of entire civilizations. When he marched across fields, armies ran. His arrival on Earth was a declaration of absolute domination. They landed outside a human military base in what the translators called Nevada. A dozen Varnock warriors disembarked with full war gear, ready to make a statement. But Earth didn't react the way the others had. There was no surrender, no begging, no whimpering under the shadow of doom. The humans stood still, watched, and prepared. A single man walked forward to meet the invaders. No armor, no weapon, just a scarred face, eyes shaded under a worn cap, and a look like he'd seen worse than monsters. His name was Logan. He didn't introduce himself. Didn't flinch when the translator roared, "Bow or be broken!" He looked up at Zirthal and said, "You better turn around." It wasn't bravado. It wasn't arrogance. It was a warning, cold and quiet. Zirthal raised a claw and lashed out. But Logan didn't move. Not until the last second. Then his hand blurred, something cracked, and the Varnock commander stumbled backward, clutching a dislocated shoulder. It went silent. The Varnock didn't understand. They couldn't understand. This wasn't how things worked. No one stood up to them, and certainly no soft-skinned mammal managed to injure one of them, let alone the strongest among them. "Leave," Logan repeated, like it was a favor. Instead, they attacked. What happened next spread like wildfire through the galaxy. Surveillance footage leaked. A dozen Varnock warriors charged. One man met them. No armor, no plasma, just fists, knees, and raw, unfiltered rage. He didn't just fight. He demolished them. Jaws snapped. Bones shattered. One Varnock had his leg twisted clean off at the hip. Another took a punch and didn't get back up. The final warrior ran, actually ran, from a species they'd come to enslave. It wasn't a battle. It was a message. The footage went viral across the black markets and deep networks. Species who had cowered in silence for generations saw something they'd never dared to dream. The Varnock defeated. Not by fleets, not by technology, by a human. Suddenly, humans weren't just another conquest. They were the question the galaxy had never asked. What happens when the weak don't break? The Varnock never admitted defeat. Not publicly, not even to themselves. After all, they weren't wired for shame. But inside their war halls, behind the walls of their dread ships, whispers spread like infection. One human, no armor, no cybernetics, just fists and fury. Zirthal remained silent about the ambush. He sat in the med bay, arm reset and pride shattered. He refused painkillers. Pain he could handle. But the memory? That broke deeper. The elders demanded answers. The footage had been captured, scrubbed, and edited before release, but the damage was irreversible. Rumors spread among Varnock youth. Children who once dreamed of war began to question the invincible image their society depended on. If a human could challenge their champion, what else had the Empire lied about? Meanwhile, Earth didn't celebrate. There were no parades, no propaganda, no flags waved in Logan's name. In fact, the incident was buried under official secrecy. Logan was debriefed for 13 hours, then discharged. No medals, no recognition, just a silent nod from a general who looked 10 years older by the end of the meeting. Logan didn't need the praise. He knew this wasn't over. That fight? That was the beginning. Back home, he returned to his small cabin deep in Montana's wilderness. He didn't talk much, didn't socialize. The scars on his back spoke of other wars, the kind with no glory, jungles, black sites, operations no one would ever hear about. Men like him didn't live for applause. They lived because something darker kept them going, something that refused to die. But the Varnock weren't done either. Humiliation breeds obsession, and Commander Zirthal wasn't about to let the universe believe he had been defeated. Not by a primitive, not by a human. He requested a second mission, classified, unauthorized by the Elder Council. No armada, no grand invasion, just him, and a kill squad of the most sadistic bastards Varnock space had to offer. Not soldiers, assassins. They landed in secret, cloaked by stolen tech scavenged from a dismantled ghost fleet. Their orders? No confrontation, no theatrics. Quietly eliminate the threat. Make the body disappear, rewrite the narrative. The humans didn't see them coming. But Logan did. He was chopping wood behind his cabin when the trees went silent. No wind, no birds, just static in the air and a feeling in his gut that never lied. He dropped the axe, reached under the porch where he kept the old gear, rifle wrapped in oiled cloth, 2 knives strapped to a harness, and a piece of jagged metal he'd pulled from a Varnock's arm socket weeks ago. They came for him at dusk, 6 of them, camouflaged in adaptive skins, moving like shadows across the tree line. He let them come. He wanted them close. The first one dropped from a tree and never landed. Logan spun and drove the metal shard through its neck, twisting until cartilage snapped. The body hit the ground in silence, leaking dark, viscous blood that steamed in the cold. The second got him with a shoulder charge, slammed him into the cabin wall. Wood cracked. His ribs burned. But pain was familiar. Logan headbutted the thing hard enough to split skin, then tore its throat out with a blade that wasn't meant to be that sharp. But force made up for design. He took 2 more hits, one to the back of the head, another across his spine. He staggered, spit blood, and grinned. "You think you're the first monsters I've killed?" he muttered, voice gravel and venom. The fight turned primal. No tactics, no protocol, just survival. When it was over, the cabin burned behind him. 4 dead Varnock at his feet, one limping away through the trees, one unaccounted for. Logan didn't pursue. He didn't need to. That survivor would carry the story home. Let them know. Earth wasn't soft. Earth fought back. Back in Varnock space, the elders raged. "Humans are dangerous," one snarled, his mandibles grinding. "Number 1 human is dangerous," corrected another. "But he is not the only one. He can't be." They didn't understand humanity. They only saw what their arrogance let them see. Numbers, tech levels, weaponry. What they couldn't calculate was the human soul, the refusal to be broken, the instinct to resist even when crushed. The war drums started beating. It wasn't about Earth anymore. It was about control. If even one species stood without fear, others might follow. Rebellion was a virus, and humanity had become its carrier. They launched a formal campaign. Not total annihilation, not yet. They didn't want martyrs. They wanted obedience. So they sent destroyers into Earth's orbit, turned off global communications with an EMP curtain, disabled satellites, made the world go dark, and then they broadcasted. A simple message, repeated on every screen that still worked. Surrender your strongest. The one who broke our line. Deliver him, or watch your cities fall. Logan watched the transmission from a military bunker. Generals argued. Presidents trembled. The people wanted hope. The governments wanted peace. Logan didn't say a word. He just grabbed his gear and walked out. They wouldn't give him up. He'd give himself. He contacted the Varnock. I'll come alone. No traps, no fleets, just me. The Varnock laughed. You think you can negotiate? No, Logan said. I came to end this. They met on the orbiting dreadship Vel Karun, a floating fortress that had seen 1,000 species scream. Logan was brought in shackled, half-naked, bruised from days of isolation. The Varnock crowd surrounded the arena in cheers. Cameras rolled. The spectacle was live-streamed across dozens of star systems. They had one goal: break the human in public. Zirthal stood in the center of the arena, fully armored, weaponized, reborn from the shame he carried. This was his redemption. Logan looked at him with dead eyes. Not anger, not fear, just certainty. The chains fell, the arena fell silent, and Logan charged. He didn't wait, didn't circle, didn't calculate. He attacked. The first strike was brutal. His fist slammed into Zirthal's chest, cracking armor plates. The Varnock countered, claws slashing across Logan's side. Blood flew. He didn't fall. He roared. The fight became chaos. Zirthal had strength, reach, and weapons. Logan had pain, experience, and nothing left to lose. He bit, he clawed, he stabbed with debris ripped from the arena floor. He broke fingers to bend his fists tighter. He snapped bones with elbow strikes, crushed joints under his knees, and didn't stop when his own shoulder dislocated. The Varnock began to panic. They had come to watch domination. What they saw was survival. Furious, savage, relentless survival. And in the final moment, when Logan stood over Zirthal, dripping blood, gasping for breath with half his ribs broken, he didn't kill him. He looked at the crowd, looked at the cameras. You came to see a man die, he said, but I don't die easy. He turned and walked away. Behind him, Zirthal reached for a weapon. Logan didn't turn. He just said, "Try it!" And the commander froze. The message spread faster than war ever could. Humans weren't the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were something worse. They didn't stop. They called it the Logan effect. No official declaration, no strategic treaty. But across the galaxy, species began to stir. Not just because a human had survived the arena of the Varnock, but because he walked out after staring down their strongest warrior and left him broken on the floor. Rebellions that had simmered for centuries now flared like wildfire. Slave races, once voiceless, whispered one name through chains and shadows: Logan. The Varnock Empire was crumbling. Not through war, through fear, through the unraveling of their legend of invincibility. But Logan wasn't celebrating. He didn't return to Earth a hero. He didn't come home at all. He vanished. Some said he died of wounds that never healed. Others swore they saw him in the far systems, training militias on backwater moons, moving silently, never speaking his real name. Wherever oppression flared, death followed. Silent, efficient, brutal. Always precise. The galaxy began to understand. Humans were not like them. They didn't conquer with fleets or control with fear. They fought because they refused to be owned, because pain didn't stop them. It defined them. And still the Varnock refused to yield. Behind closed doors, the elders assembled a different kind of weapon. Not brute strength, not numbers. They turned to science. A project born in secrecy years ago had been accelerated, Vexor Null, a hybrid super-soldier program built from stolen human DNA and modified Varnock genetics. Their goal? Create a warrior with the instincts of a human, but loyalty bred in a lab. No emotion, no fear, just obedience. And this time, they succeeded. The first prototype was a thing of nightmares, taller than a Varnock, faster than any human, with a nervous system enhanced by nanite feedback. It didn't speak. It didn't hesitate. It didn't question. It hunted. They gave it one task: eliminate Logan. The creature was unleashed on the outer systems first, wiping out small rebel cells. It moved with surgical cruelty, tearing through defenders, never sparing, never speaking. Where Logan had inspired hope, this thing inspired silence. But Logan was watching. He saw the footage, the way it moved, the way it fought. And he recognized something in its technique. His own. His rage boiled. They hadn't just stolen his DNA. They'd studied him, cloned his instincts, turned everything that made him human into a weapon. It wasn't about survival anymore. It was personal. So he hunted it back. He followed its path across scorched moons and broken colonies. Every massacre left a trail: blood, bodies, fear, but also data, patterns, mistakes. He watched, waited, studied it like an apex predator circling another. When he finally found it, it wasn't during a fight. It was after one. The hybrid had wiped out a rebel camp on Varus 9. Dozens dead, civilians included. Logan walked through the wreckage, knelt beside a child's broken body, eyes open and empty. He didn't cry. He didn't curse. He just stood up and whispered, "You're mine now." The confrontation happened on Rianov Station, a derelict outpost floating between systems, half swallowed by its own decaying orbit. Logan lured it there with false transmissions, baiting the hybrid with coded signals and scraps of genetic residue. It worked. They met in the core chamber, surrounded by steam and dying light. Logan stepped forward. Shirtless, scarred. No guns, just two knives, strapped to his forearms like fangs waiting to strike. The hybrid emerged from the shadows, 7 feet of engineered murder. It didn't blink, didn't speak, just charged. They clashed like storms colliding. The first blow cracked ribs. Logan staggered. The hybrid followed with a knee to the gut, lifting him off the floor. But Logan twisted midair, slamming both knives into the creature's side. Sparks flew. It didn't scream. They rolled across the metal floor. Blood, both black and red, splashed across rusted walls. The hybrid slammed Logan's head into a pipe. Logan bit into its shoulder, tore a chunk out with his teeth. Pain was fuel. Memory was fire. "You think you're me?" Logan growled, wiping blood from his eyes. "You're a shadow, a cheap copy." The hybrid slammed him through a wall. Logan collapsed. For a moment, he didn't move. His vision blurred. He felt bones shift. He tasted metal. But then he smiled. "You made one mistake," he said hoarsely, dragging himself upright. "You forgot what makes us human." The hybrid tilted its head. "We don't stop when we're broken." Logan triggered the charge. The floor erupted. The explosion threw them both back. The hybrid landed in fire. Logan crawled out, ribs shattered, dragging one leg. The creature rose again. Damaged, sparks leaking from its chest. Logan grabbed a steel rod, charged. He screamed, not in pain but in rage, and drove it through the creature's core. It spasmed, eyes flickering. Logan twisted. Pulled. The lights in the station went dark. The hybrid collapsed. Silence. Logan stood over it, chest heaving. I don't care how many of me you build, he muttered. I'll bury everyone. Word spread fast. The hybrid was dead. Logan had survived again, alone, unarmed, unrelenting. Across the galaxy, the myth grew. The man who couldn't be killed, who didn't fight for glory, who never asked for help. And Earth? Earth began to change. They stopped waiting for threats. They built fleets. They trained soldiers, not in numbers, but in mindset. The Logan Doctrine became a military philosophy. Fight like you've already lost everything, then fight harder. Other species joined. Not for alliances, for a chance to learn. Humans weren't the apex, but they were something worse. They were free, and freedom, once sparked, doesn't die easy. Logan didn't leave Rayanov Station immediately. He stayed long enough to make sure the hybrid's body was destroyed, thrown into the reactor core, burned to dust in silence. No souvenirs, no trophies, just another ghost in the black. By now the galaxy no longer needed proof of his survival. Every faction with eyes knew the truth. Logan was still alive. And worse, he was watching. Back on Earth, that truth lit a fire under the brass. Governments that once feared another invasion began accelerating defense systems. Nations merged military resources. The old world order was dead. The new one was built around a single phrase: never again. Humans weren't playing defense anymore. But the galaxy wasn't standing still either. With the hybrid failure, the Varnock were split. The elders called for extermination, glass Earth, salt its soil, and erase the virus of resistance. Others warned against it. Earth had allies now. Former slaves, fringe mercenary bands, even some Varnock defectors who'd seen what Logan had done and wanted no part of a war they couldn't win. That internal fracture turned Cold War into chaos. Civil war erupted in Varnock space. It started small, one commander refusing an execution order, another pulling his fleet to defend his homeworld. But soon, entire dreadnoughts were turning their guns inward. Colonies rebelled. War priests burned temples. Trade routes collapsed under piracy and mutiny. And through it all, Logan remained a ghost. Until one message reached him. It wasn't a call for help. It was a recording. From a prison moon called Vethrax 4. The footage was simple. Shaky, low res. A group of chained human captives, bloodied, kneeling. The last remnants of a scout crew captured 2 months prior. No ransom, no demand. Just one sentence from a masked figure. We have your kind. Come and take them. It wasn't just bait. It was a challenge, and Logan didn't hesitate. Vethrax 4 wasn't just a prison. It was a statement. A floating hell for political dissidents and species of interest. The guards weren't just Varnock. They were hybrids, second generation, stronger, smarter, less human. Logan studied the moon from a stolen freighter. He had no army, no backup. Just a 5-minute window when the station rotated into its blackout arc. He used it. He dropped from orbit in a one-man pod, piercing the atmosphere like a blade. The shell burned. Alarms flared. And by the time it hit the surface, he was already out, rolling across rock, knife in hand, moving like a shadow with purpose. The outer perimeter was guarded by 3 towers. He didn't disable them. He ignored them. Crawled beneath detection arcs, slit the throats of 2 sentries, and scaled the west wall using only a grappling hook and his own rage. Inside, it was worse. Cells lined the corridors like butcher stalls. Creatures from 100 systems screamed or wept or stared with dead eyes. The air smelled like metal and misery. Logan didn't flinch. He made his way to Sector 7, where the humans were kept. The guards never saw him coming. He moved like an infection. Quick, precise, invisible until it was too late. He found the prisoners locked in energy cages, barely conscious. One of them, A young man, face swollen and one eye shut, whispered, "Are you real?" Logan just nodded, and broke the controls with his knife. As the cells powered down, alarms shrieked. The station lit red. Logan tossed a rifle to the nearest prisoner. "Can you shoot?" The man nodded. "Then follow, no talking." They moved fast. Guards poured into the corridors. Logan dropped 3 in seconds. The former prisoners, barely able to stand, rallied behind him. They fought like men who knew this was their last shot. Every step was war. Logan took a plasma shot to the shoulder. Didn't stop. He smashed a hybrid's head into a wall and used its corpse as a shield. His knife never left his hand. They reached the hangar bay with only 4 of the original 12 prisoners left. The rest? Dead or missing? No time to grieve. They stole a transport ship, barely functioning, leaking coolant, riddled with holes, and launched. Behind them, Vethrax 4 exploded in a chain reaction. Whether it was sabotage or an emergency protocol, no one knew. But Logan didn't look back. The rescue changed everything. No longer was Logan a lone shadow. He became a symbol. Galactic news feeds, pirate broadcasts, rebel networks, all replayed the same footage. A single man leading chained prisoners out of hell. His legend became fuel. Small rebellions became armies. Colonies that once begged for mercy now begged for weapons. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were shaping the war. And Earth evolved. Gone were the days of cautious diplomacy. Now Earth had its own fleet, fast, nimble, aggressive, built not to conquer but to strike first. They called it the Grey Legion. Not soldiers, not diplomats, warriors trained in Logan's image, each one broken down and rebuilt to fight like men with nothing left to lose. They didn't answer to nations. They answered to necessity. And they didn't ask for permission. But even legends bleed. Logan knew what was coming. The Varnock elders, what was left of them, had finally agreed to one last plan. Not science, not war. Something older, darker. They began awakening the Dread Core, a biological weapon buried deep in Varnock myth, created in the Age of Flame before they even reached the stars. It wasn't artificial. It was born from something else, something feral, a creature designed not to kill but to erase. Entire ecosystems had vanished when it was last loosed. Now it was stirring again, and it was aimed at Earth. The warning came from a dying Varnock defector who crawled into an outpost with half his organs missing. His last words, "It's awake. You don't have time." Logan stood over the body, fists clenched. He turned to the Grey Legion and said one thing. "Then we hit first." The Dread Core was more myth than fact. Whispers passed in low voices among even the most brutal Varnock warlords. They said it had no soul, no mind, just hunger. An extinction-level entity bred in the blackest pit of Varnock evolution. Not a machine. Not a creature. Something older than design, something closer to nightmare than biology. And now they had pointed it at Earth. When the Grey Legion's intelligence network confirmed the activation site, there was no debate, no hesitation. Logan and his team moved out within the hour. The target, Xerac Theta, a forgotten Varnock moon long abandoned and left to rot. It had no atmosphere, no heat, just deep tunnels spiraling into a hollow core. And in that core, sealed behind genetic locks, slept the last remnant of ancient Varnock supremacy. Logan stood at the head of the strike team, face wrapped in black cloth, plasma knife at his hip, rifle slung across his chest. No insignia, no armor rank, just eyes like stone. The transport ship screamed through void space, barely holding together after years of battlefront retrofits. The Legion didn't waste credits on comfort. It was all speed, fire, and violence. Inside the cabin, the men were silent. They all knew this was different. This wasn't a raid or rescue. This was a suicide run. But if Logan was afraid, he didn't show it. One of the younger soldiers, newly patched, eyes still full of heat, finally spoke. "What if it's worse than they say?" Logan didn't look at him. He just muttered, "Then we make sure it dies scared." The ship hit atmosphere, or what was left of it, crashing into the surface like a meteor. They didn't land. They hit. Doors blew open. Legionnaires poured out, each one hand-picked, trained in Logan's image. No fear, no mercy, no hesitation. They moved fast through the frozen surface, breaching through an ancient bunker, descending through cold stone tunnels laced with glyphs long erased by time. And then they found it. The chamber. A vast cathedral of bone and metal, pulsing with dull red light. In the center, suspended in a cocoon of translucent black flesh, floated the dread core. It was alive. Logan stepped forward, eyes narrowing. The thing inside the shell had no shape, just movement, constant shifting, a swirl of claws and mouths and tendrils, none of them the same twice. It was like staring into an abstract idea of death. The air was wrong. It felt heavy, each breath like swallowing fear. The team spread out, planting charges, checking corners, but it was already awake. The shell pulsed, then cracked. And then it screamed, not a sound, not a noise, a vibration, deep, bone-breaking. One of the soldiers dropped to his knees, blood pouring from his nose. Another fired wildly into the shadows, screaming. The dread core unfolded. It didn't attack. It consumed. 3 men were gone in seconds, swallowed whole by shadows that moved like fluid. Logan didn't flinch. "On me!" he roared, rallying the team. They fired everything. Plasma, grenades, ion bursts. The dread core absorbed it, but something in its movement slowed, hesitated. Pain. It felt pain. Logan moved. He dove beneath a flailing tendril, slicing deep into the exposed membrane beneath. The creature recoiled. Logan grabbed a fallen soldier's thermal detonator, jammed it into the wound, and ran. It blew. The chamber shook. The cocoon splintered. The dread core let out a shriek of pure hatred. And then it changed. No more shadow, no more shifting. It took shape, and it took his. Logan stared at it. It looked like him. Not exactly. Bigger, twisted, muscles too dense, veins glowing with alien light. Its face was a warped mirror, a mockery. Then it spoke. "You're what broke us." Its voice was his. Deeper, hollow, echoed like it came from inside his skull. "You infected everything. You made them weak." Logan raised his rifle. "You don't get to wear my face." The fight that followed was beyond tactics. Logan moved like a weapon, but the dread core was faster, stronger. Every punch landed like a truck. Bones cracked, armor splintered, but Logan didn't stop. He tackled it into the wall, driving a plasma blade into its spine. It screamed, fought back, bit his shoulder open. He kept going. One by one, the team died around him, holding the line, firing until their guns melted, dying like soldiers who knew their cause wasn't survival. It was stopping this thing from leaving. And Logan? He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to bury it. He triggered the failsafe. The charges they planted weren't meant to collapse the chamber. They were meant to erase it. Nuclear core detonation. The countdown began. Logan looked up at the beast that wore his face. "Let's see if you die like a man." The Dread Corps lunged. They fell together, locked in struggle, into the central pit. The last thing the satellite picked up from Zirac Theta was a light brighter than the sun. And then, silence. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Zirac Theta destroyed, no survivors. The Legion mourned. The galaxy shifted. Without the Dread Corps, the Varnock finally fractured completely. Civil war turned to collapse. Outposts fell. Colonies declared independence. Fleets disbanded. The empire that once ruled star clusters with an iron claw now cracked under the weight of one man's legacy. Logan was gone. But what he left behind was worse than fear. He left behind belief. Belief that one man, one human, could break gods. They held no funeral for Logan, no tomb, no grave, no ceremony. Because men like him didn't die for a folded flag or a headline. He died the same way he lived, alone, in fire for others. For a while, Earth stayed quiet. Not in defeat, in purpose. The Grey Legion pulled back, licking their wounds. Command centers around the globe went into a silent phase. Eyes turned inward. Across the galaxy, rebellion continued without Earth's guidance. Species who had once feared stepping out of line now hunted down the Varnock remnants like wolves chasing old lions. The Empire was finished. But Earth had a problem no other species had. They had to live up to Logan. His ghost was everywhere. His image projected in training simulators, his tactics used in military classrooms, his voice sampled in every AI warbrain. Don't wait to be hit. Move first. Move hard. But there was something darker, too. Something that whispered beneath the surface of Earth's sudden power. No one wanted to say it out loud, but the truth crept in anyway. He made us gods. What if we become the next Varnock? It was a conversation whispered in backroom meetings, late-night briefings, old generals around bourbon-stained tables. With Earth holding the biggest stick in the galaxy, and no Logan to pull it back, who would stop the wrong hands from swinging? Then came the first sign. A Varnock colony, neutral, small, unarmed, was glassed from orbit. No warning, no declaration, just annihilation. The Legion denied involvement. Earth's government swore it was rogue action. But someone had used Earth-made warships. Someone had worn Grey Legion armor. And no one took credit. The galaxy watched with held breath. Then a second incident. This time a rebel faction of humans, former Legionnaires, war-hardened, off-grid, executed a Varnock scientist live on broadcast. The message was clear: we remember. We don't forgive. Panic rippled. Former enemies started preparing countermeasures. Earth's allies questioned their loyalty. Old rebel fleets pulled away, hiding deeper into the stars. All it took was a spark. And Earth, once the symbol of resistance, now looked like the next threat. The Grey Legion fractured. One faction still loyal to Logan's principles. Strike only when needed. Protect the weak. Never become the enemy. The other? Cold, calculating, fanatical. They believed Earth earned dominance, and they intended to keep it. They called themselves the Crimson Chain. No faces, no commanders, just action. They struck silently, swiftly, eliminating what they called galactic threats without oversight. Smuggling rings, alien crime lords, entire pirate fleets vanished without trace. But so did peaceful leaders. Old revolutionaries who once fought beside Logan disappeared. Whole colonies silenced in the dark. And every time, the same calling card appeared. Logan lives through fire, But Logan didn't believe in fire for power. He believed in fire for justice. That difference was everything. The original Legion leaders gathered in secret. They called themselves the Pale Shield, a last hope to keep the vision pure, to protect what Logan died for. And they made a decision. They needed a counter. Not another fleet. Not another war. They needed to bring Logan back. Not the man, the mission. Buried deep beneath the old United States, in an abandoned facility sealed off since before first contact, they pulled open blacklisted files. Operation Revenant, a failsafe created during the first Varnock invasion. A system designed to scan, store, and reconstruct the neural patterns of elite operatives, just in case they died before passing on vital combat knowledge. Logan's data was there, half destroyed, fragmented by encryption. But enough. They couldn't clone him. But they could train another, not a copy, a successor. His name was Cole. He didn't ask for the role. Didn't want it, but he had the look. Not in the face, in the eyes, that same dead weight behind the stare. That same way of walking like the world owed him a fight. He was ex-Legion, thrown out for disobeying an execution order, refused to torch a refugee outpost during a black site sweep. His file was sealed, his name whispered with both respect and fear. The Pale Shield found him in the Martian underbelly, drunk, half-starved, fighting off 3 mercs with a broken chair. They offered him a choice. Rebuild what Logan stood for, or watch everything fall to fire. He didn't say yes. He just stood up, spat blood, and said, "Where do we start?" They trained him in silence, not just in tactics, in principle. He read every file, studied every recorded word of Logan's, watched every mission breakdown, learned not just how the man fought, but why. He didn't try to imitate him. He tried to understand him. What drove a man to walk alone into death for others? What made someone burn themselves down to keep the galaxy warm? By the end of the 6th month, he didn't speak much. But when he did, it sounded a lot like something Logan might have said. Strength means nothing if it only protects itself. When Cole stepped out again, it wasn't with a banner or a fanfare. He walked into a crimson chain ambush, hands empty, no backup, and left 3 hours later. Alone. The survivors couldn't speak. Their vocal cords had been crushed. Deliberately. But the message was clear. Logan's ghost had teeth, and it was biting back. The galaxy had moved on, or so it thought. The Varnock were finished, their homeworlds shattered, their culture fractured into splinters of exile, infighting, and regret. Where once their empire blotted out suns, now all that remained were scorched maps and hunted survivors. And yet, peace never came, because Earth had filled the void. Logan had earned that power. Cole was born into it. But Earth's dominance wasn't clean. Not anymore. The Crimson Chain now acted with total impunity, launching preemptive strikes across 3 sectors. A mining colony on Kalor 8, accused of harboring ex-Varnock officers, was wiped out from orbit, glassed clean in under 2 minutes. 70,000 dead. No trial, no evidence, just extermination. The message was clear: fear us or burn. But Cole didn't buy fear. He bought silence, precision, discipline. The Pale Shield worked in shadows, surgical, quiet, tracking every chain cell, mapping every hidden depot, every corrupted officer still wearing Legion insignia. And then they struck. First on Lithar Station, a fuel outpost deep in neutral space. A Crimson Chain officer's ship exploded in dock before he even stepped off the landing ramp. 3 operatives were found later in the waste system, throats opened, eyes burned out. The chain retaliated, hunting suspected informants across Allied sectors. One by one, former Logan allies began to vanish. Earth's political elite grew nervous. Journalists who dared question Legion policy started disappearing mid-transmission. Those who returned had memory loss, or worse, changed their tune entirely. Cole moved like a ghost through it all. No name, no rank, no official affiliation. Just fear in the right circles, and hope in the darker ones. Then came the turning point. An encrypted broadcast spread across the outer colonies. Grainy, shaky footage. A man strapped to a chair, beaten, bloody, but still upright. It was Kieran Val, once Logan's field tech during the Vethrax operation. He'd disappeared after the core explosion. Many assumed he died alongside Logan. He hadn't. He was alive. And he was angry. In the video, he spoke through a broken jaw. "I don't care if Logan's dead. What matters is what you became." Then the camera panned. A Crimson Chain officer stood behind him, silent. Then pulled the trigger. The footage cut to static. The galaxy exploded. Not in fire, in questions. What was Earth doing? Who gave the chain this power? Where the hell was the real Legion? And in the silence that followed, one voice emerged. Not from Earth, from Remel's moon, a former rebel hub now turned independent broadcast center. A single audio-only signal. Deep voice. Calm. "I don't need a fleet to make you remember. I am Logan's will, and I will burn you down." It was Cole. The Pale Shield didn't try to stop it. They helped him spread it. The message went everywhere. Even Earth's core command heard it. And someone inside the chain panicked. Because they responded fast. They launched an official manhunt. They labeled Cole a traitor. Declared open bounty, alive or dead. 1 billion credits. They underestimated how many people still believed. Cole's name became legend overnight. Entire outer systems refused to hand him over. Some even started arming themselves again, just in case Earth came knocking. Again. Earth's political structure split in two. The Strategic Dominion Council, fully corrupted, backed the chain. Called for expansion, resource annexation, threat control. The old guard, few as they were, pushed back, arguing for diplomacy, restraint, for the values Logan died for. But restraint didn't sell fear. And fear had made Earth powerful. The Crimson Chain made their next move. They hit Seraph Station, an orbital hub run by non-human delegates and neutral merchants. Hundreds of civilians, half of them refugees. The chain declared it a threat zone, citing anti-Earth propaganda. They struck at 0400 hours. No warning. Seraph fell within 8 minutes. 3,000 confirmed dead. No survivors. But this time, someone watched. A rogue freighter caught the tail end of the massacre on long-range sensors, transmitted the whole thing. Footage went live. People screamed. And in the background of the fire, walking through the smoke, helmet cracked but upright. Cole. He had been there, alone, hunting a chain cell. Too late to stop the main strike, but not too late to record the aftermath. The footage ended with him holding a scorched Crimson Chain banner in one hand, dragging a wounded operative in the other. Then darkness. No one knew where he went. Inside Pale Shield Command, they knew. He was planning something. Bigger than raids, bigger than revenge. He was building something Logan never had the chance to. A reckoning. He reached out to old allies, Varnock survivors, rebel outposts, independent AI factions. Not to beg, to arm. He told them what was coming. You thought the Varnock were monsters. You haven't seen what Earth becomes when it loses its soul." Some listened, some didn't. But those who did started preparing for war. Not with Earth, with the chain, because Earth didn't scare them anymore. Cole did. In the ruins of Seraph Station, deep in a shattered data bank, Cole left one last message. Uncoded, unfiltered. He looked directly into the lens, one eye swollen shut, lip bleeding. And he said, "I won't wear his face, I won't use his name. But I'll make sure you never forget it. You wanted Logan back? You got something worse." Then the screen cut to black, and across the stars, hope and fear became the same thing. Cole. The galaxy didn't sleep anymore. Not after Cole's last message, not after Seraph Station. There was no illusion of diplomacy left. No buffer between the dream of peace and the engine of fear Earth had become. And the Crimson Chain? They were preparing for finality. They called it Operation Iron Veil, a galaxy-wide sweep to eliminate all known resistance to Earth's authority. Pale Shield, rebel outposts, unaligned systems. Anyone who dared fly a ship without Earth's crest would be considered hostile. And that wasn't policy. That was a purge. Cole knew it, saw the signs, tapped every contact he had left. Traitorous officers, disgraced mercs, Varnock elders hiding in asteroid mines. Even AI collectives thought long extinct emerged with data cores that pulsed with anti-Earth archives. He gathered them. All of them. Not under a flag. Under a truth. The monster isn't in the shadows anymore, he told them. It's walking in daylight, and it wears our colors. They didn't need inspiration. They needed a chance. So Cole gave them one. They would strike first, not to conquer, not to kill, but to cut off the head. Earth's Strategic Dominion Council was centralized. Ironically, a weakness in their obsession with control. A single fortified megastation orbiting Jupiter. They called it the Bastion. Unbreachable, impenetrable, until now. Cole's plan was simple. Get inside. Broadcast the Council's crimes. Kill the ones who couldn't be turned. And leave no more excuses. It wasn't suicide. It was the only way. He assembled a final strike team. 7 men and women who had nothing left to lose. All ghosts, all killers. Not for glory, not for revenge, for clarity. One of them, a Varnock named Tharzan, scarred, bitter, once a slave under the chain, spoke before they launched. "This isn't for Logan. This is for everyone who believed in him and got buried for it." They launched under black comms. No call signs, no signals. Just a vector straight into the heart of Earth's tyranny. The Bastion's outer shell was titanium-veined obsidian, layered with point defense systems and AI-triggered autocannons. But Pale Shield had one advantage the chain didn't expect. They were human. And the system still hesitated when the threat looked familiar. The breach worked. Cole and his team blew through the lower docks, cutting through the first layer of defense like ghosts of vengeance. No warning, no mercy. They weren't here to send a message. They were the message. Hall after hall, level after level, they fought like wolves. No backup, no time to reload, just steel, smoke, and instinct. When they reached the core chamber, where the council convened, they didn't kick the door in. Cole just walked through it. Bloody, burned, breathing like a storm. 5 members stood inside, 4 armed, 1 begging. Cole didn't speak. He raised a pulse rifle and fired into the ceiling. A micro-drone swarm detonated. Every screen lit up, across the galaxy. The broadcast went live. Every war crime, every order, every erased name, every silenced colony. Earth's truth spilled like acid. Billions watched. And Cole? He stepped into frame, looked into the lens with the kind of stare that buried gods. I'm not Logan. I don't deserve to be. But I remember him. He died for a future where no one had to be like him. Instead, you turned his grave into a throne. He turned to the council. 2 of them tried to speak. Cole silenced them with 1 shot each. Then he lowered the rifle. This isn't vengeance, this is balance. He let the last 3 live, turned away, walked out, and left the council in their own silence. The broadcast never stopped. It looped. For 3 straight days. What happened next wasn't war. It was collapse. Systems peeled away from Earth like dried skin. Old allies refused to answer calls. Soldiers dropped weapons mid-patrol. Even some chain operatives defected, burning their insignias and calling themselves Children of Logan. The chain didn't go quietly. They launched counterattacks, tried to regain control. But Earth's people? They'd seen the truth. They revolted. Not in riots, in refusal. Officers dragged out of bunkers. Drones fried in their cradles. Ships hijacked mid-orbit. Within a week, Earth was no longer Earth. It was just a blue planet trying to remember what it had almost become. Cole disappeared again. Refused to lead. Refused to be crowned. He sent 1 final message to Pale Shield. Don't build statues. Build people who don't need them. Then silence. Some say he died. Others say he became a myth, slipping between systems, correcting what Logan started. But every year, on the date of the Bastion's fall, across every free system in the galaxy, they replay the last clip of him walking away from the camera. And beneath it, a simple phrase burned in every language. He wasn't the strongest. He was the most human. The galaxy settled, not into peace, but into memory. The wars were over. The Varnock Empire had dissolved into myth and nomadism. The Crimson Chain, once the sword of Earth's dominance, was buried by the very people it claimed to protect. The Bastion no longer orbited Jupiter. Its ruins drifted as a scar across the void, a caution etched in steel. And through it all, 2 names remained, whispered on different lips, in different tones. Logan. Cole. One never asked to lead. The other never asked to follow. Neither survived to see what they made possible. But the galaxy didn't forget. In the deepest parts of neutral space, a new archive was built. Not a military fortress, not a political hub. A simple tower of black stone, surrounded by silence. No flags, no weapons, just a single engraved line. Here lie the voices that said no. Inside it, recordings from the Varnock genocide, Logan's arena fight, the hybrid massacre, the footage of Seraph Station, blood-smearing glass, the last breath of Kieran Vall. Cole's broadcast inside the Bastion. It was free to all, no charge, no surveillance. The tower was called the Hollow Record. Every species visited it. Some cried, some stayed silent. A few, including ex-Varnock children, left offerings, broken chain links, cracked helmets, drawings of Earth not as a conqueror, but as a wound trying to heal. Back on Earth, the Pale Shield disbanded. They didn't trust themselves to keep the fire without being burned by it. Instead, they scattered, trained quietly, influenced slowly, not as soldiers, as guides. They kept Logan's philosophy alive, not by command, but by choice. Teach strength, but teach restraint. Strike only when there's no other path. And never worship the man. Worship the lesson. The Varnock species endured. Not through vengeance, through reflection. Their homeworlds were gone, But they rebuilt differently. No more warrior castes, no more empire. They were broken. But sometimes broken things become honest. They created shrines not to gods, but to the fallen, Varnock and human alike. On the walls, inscribed in 3 languages, was a simple phrase passed down from one of their defectors who had fought beside Logan. Pain taught us fear, but fear taught us humility. No one knows what happened to Cole. Some say he became a drifter, helping rebuild systems burned by the chain. Others claim he was assassinated by one of the Council's final shadows. A few swear he still watches, in the gray edges of new rebellions, appearing only when a leader steps too far, when fire turns to madness. But most believe what they need to, and in that need, the myth survives. On Earth, time passed. The government restructured, power decentralized. The Legion became a volunteer force, smaller, leaner, bound by law and ethics forged in Logan's image. Military monuments were torn down. In their place, gardens. Peace wasn't perfect. Humans still argued, still made mistakes. But they had context now. Every child learned about the war, not as a victory, but as a warning. And in every school, in every history book, the final chapter was never about glory. It was about cost. About what happens when power forgets what it's supposed to protect. In the final, uninhabited corner of space, far beyond charted maps, there is a planet with no name, no cities, no ships, just one cabin. Wood, stone, silence, no power, no transmission beacons. And inside, a fireplace, a chair, a jacket hanging on the wall. On the table sits a knife, worn, stained, the handle cracked by time. And next to it, a nameplate. Nothing fancy, just carved into wood. Logan. It's not a grave. It's not a memorial. It's a waiting place. No one built it. No one claims to have found it. But those who stumble across it, explorers, wanderers, runaways, they say the same thing. The place feels safe, like someone once fought for it, like someone still might. Final word. In the end, the galaxy didn't need heroes. It needed reminders. And in the shadows of those 2 men, one who stood alone in the arena and one who carried the flame through the darkness, it found something more powerful than fear. It found memory, it found choice, and it never forgot.